So now that we've kind of come up with the integral, the formula for this method, let's go ahead and kind of put it into practice using the example that we started with above. So if we go through and we define what we need, let's take stock of what we're actually going to need here. So we're going to need our upper and our lower bound. So what would those be? Well, in this particular case, the bounds are just going to be x equals 1 to x equals 5. So there's one really nice payoff here, is that even though this was a vertical axis of rotation, everything is staying in terms of x, which is a nice change of pace from what we would have had to have done with the washer the disk method. So our bounds are going to be from x equals 1 to x equals 5. We need to find the height of this shell, and in this case the height is just going to be our function, in this case negative x squared plus 6x minus 5. And then lastly, we need to identify the radius. And again, the radius is sometimes one of the trickier things in these problems. In this case, if we think about the radius just being the distance from the axis of rotation to a random cross section on this area, that distance right there is just x. So that makes it kind of nice. So here we would just say that our radius is just going to be x. Now if we start moving that axis of rotation around, which we'll do in some further examples, like if it wasn't just the y-axis, maybe we shifted over to like x equals -3, that radius is going to change here. So don't think it's always just as easy as just x or maybe y. All right, so let's go ahead with these things. We should now be able to set up our integral and calculate for volume. So volume is going to be the integral from x equals 1 to x equals 5, 2 pi times x times negative x squared plus 6x minus 5 integrated with respect to x. So again, I'm going to point this out. We've got a rotation around a vertical axis that is now a function of x as opposed to y from the disk and the washer method. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and clean this up a little bit. I'd pull out that 2 pi if I were you. And then we don't know how to integrate the product of two functions of x yet, so it's going to be necessary for us to now distribute that x through. And that would give us negative x cubed plus 6x squared minus 5x. Integrate with respect to x. And if we were to do that, we would have 2 pi, and we just have 3 general power rules here. So we're going to have negative 1/4 x to the power of 4 plus 6 divided by 3, which is going to be 2, x to the power of 3, minus 5 over 2 times x to the power of 2, which we are going to evaluate from 1 to 5. And if we did go ahead and plug in our x values, we would end up with a value of 64 pi cubic units. And that would be our final volume.